So how many people and which ones should you have in your client sprint team? I get this question a lot, especially when people haven't been exposed to our model of running sprints online, but a lot of these same decisions can be applied to an in-person sprint too. First and most importantly, you must have an odd number in your client's team. All of our sprints are designed to be run with either 3, 5, or 7 members of the client team. We've done it with more, and it can quickly get out of control with all the discussion and all of the decision making, which of course is the enemy of the sprint model. So when we designed the online whiteboard canvases and the exercises, we did them for 3, 5, or 7 people in all of our sprints. And that's simply because decisions are reached through voting. So the facilitator doesn't get a vote, that would be you, because our perception is not important. The only thing that matters is uncovering the reality of what already exists in your client's brand. So we need an odd numbered team, so there's never a deadlocked vote. Next, we want everyone who has a say in the outcome to be included in the team. The last thing that you want is to get to a decision point and the team leader says, oh, I'll need to get confirmation from someone else. Everyone with a say in the outcome must be in the sprint. So who does that generally mean? Well, typically the owner of the company or the CEO, the brand leader, must be involved. In smaller companies, that's going to be the person who believes the most in the company. This is the person who had the vision that launched the company in the first place. In larger companies, that might be someone who was brought in to run the show on behalf of a board of directors or something like that. Either way, this person usually has the most insight into the brand's timeline, both past and future, right? They often know what's coming that the others don't necessarily have access to. And often, they have the most insight into the company's vision and reasons for existence, right? So this person is going to be our last line of decision defense. Whenever the team can't agree, we're going to look to this person to rubber stamp our final decisions. Now, that's not going to happen often in a sprint, especially because you've got an odd number, but you do need to be prepared for that last line of defense just in case. If there's a partner in the company, they also need to be included. So think of this like anyone who could derail the process later by changing their mind, they must be in the sprint, right? Next, depending on company structure, we're looking to include heads of departments. So head of sales, admin manager, maybe head of shipping, head of marketing, all of those types of heads of departments. And then finally, we want to look for a naysayer or a saboteur in certain circumstances. So the saboteur, this is the anti-branding person. So here's how you decide if this person is necessary to have in your client team. You need to have a conversation with your client about assembling their team, obviously, and you'll have this conversation before the sprint. You need to give the client time to free up these typically very valuable members of their team to make sure they've arranged their schedules to fit the time they're required to be in the sprint with you, right? So when you're having this discussion, we just want to ask if there's a particular employee who the other staff listen to, but who usually shoots down any new ideas. So we're not just looking for Mr. or Mrs. Negative here. We're looking for the type of employee who likes the status quo and who thinks that any change will mean more work. So they knee-jerk shoot down any new ideas and who also has the ear of the other staff, which could be from like a position of seniority if they've been there for a long, long time, or position, often this is a lower level management person, or even just by virtue of them being the type to constantly gossip at the water cooler. You've probably got some experience with this type of person. They're as good as they need to be to keep their job and no more. They never miss a coffee break. They show up exactly on time, or if they're pushing it, slightly late. They leave exactly on time, or again, if they're pushing it, slightly early, and they're always looking for things to pick at. So the naysayer has to fulfill both of those requirements. If they're just negative, but they don't have the ear of the other staff, then they don't need to be involved. If they have the ear of the other staff, but they're not just knee-jerk negative, they don't need to be involved, unless they're like head of a department or something like we discussed before. But if they're both, there's a very good reason to include them with your team, and you'll want to share this with your client. So the reason that we want them involved is because these sprints are transformational processes, and by the time we finish, they have invariably switched sides from naysayer or saboteur to being a brand champion for any number of reasons, right? First, obviously they feel that they're important because they were asked to be involved. Second, there is now a piece of them invested in this company. They had a say. They contributed to the development of the brand through this sprint, right? Third, it is impossible to argue with the data, and every sprint we run is built from a data-driven foundation. And then finally, these processes, like I said, are transformative. So it's clarity, it's excitement, it's all of these things that will bring a naysayer into the fold of brand champion. And so the next logical question, knowing all that, is what do you do when your client doesn't have 3 people for the sprint? So first off, you're going to have to decide if you want to work with companies with fewer than 3 people. There's no right or wrong answer, but you want to decide who you can best help based on your individual skill set and who you can provide the most value to. If that includes companies with fewer than 3 people, fantastic. If that's the case, ask them to invite trusted advisors, maybe a very good customer, a very good supplier, anyone who knows them well and who knows the ins and outs of the company and how they do business. And of course, whoever they invite must be people your client trusts, because they'll be required to be brutally honest during the sprint, right? And we can't have the client playing things close to their vest. They need to be totally open in order for this process to even work. The point is, this process works because of the insights that we develop through multiple perspectives. And again, our perspective doesn't count as the facilitator. It has to come from the client team. So that's the client-side branding team. 3, 5, or 7 people made up of everyone who has a say in the outcome and anyone with specific perspectives around operations, management, finance, sales, etc. All of that type of stuff, right? So if you'd like a deep dive on how to sell this type of strategy to your creative prospects, so if you've got prospects who are coming to you for deliverables and you want to move into this strategic type of development, I've created a free masterclass on how to explain strategy to potential clients, how to pivot them away from deliverables and into strategy, how to make sure they can afford you as a strategist, and how to close them into a strategy sale instead, simply by being more valuable. So if that's of interest to you, click the button here or click one of the links and you can go and grab the masterclass while it's available. It's free and it is available right now. I've included all of the scripts with responses to sticking points and roadblocks and all of that, so you'll have everything that you need to know. So thanks again so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the class.